Things like this will add up over time throughout the day, and you will burn a lot more calories and you will stay a lot leaner as a result. What is up guys, Max K here, and today we're going to be going over part 2 of the series, How I Diet to Stay Lean Year Round. So let's go. So in this video, I'm going to be starting out with the most simple things you can implement immediately to help you stay lean year round, and then we're going to go into the more complex stuff involving diet, nutrition, and manipulation and supplements as well that'll help you stay shredded year round. So to begin, the first thing you can do to help stay lean year round is by increasing your step count or your NEAT every day. NEAT meaning non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, so what this means is basically passive movements that you're doing throughout the day, such as I'm talking to you right now, I'm moving my hands around, moving my body around. That's burning calories actually. So by doing that throughout the day, you can end up burning several hundred more calories than you normally would throughout the day just by being active in your random movements. Another one is walking between sets at the gym. So some people, after they hit a hard set, they just sit down, they relax. Other people, they pace around the gym. I pace around the gym between my sets because that's actually going to increase my step count throughout the day. If you're not in a hurry and you gotta get somewhere and there's an elevator and stairs, take the stairs. Things like this will add up over time throughout the day, and you will burn a lot more calories and you will stay a lot leaner as a result, assuming the diet stays the same. It makes a difference, I guarantee you and I promise you. Now, that's the first thing. Number 2 would be supplements. Okay, we have a couple supplements here out there that actually do help with staying lean. A lot of fat burners and supplements out there are BS scams, and I would never recommend you buy them, but there's a few things that actually do work, proven by science. The first one, tried and true, caffeine. Start your day off with caffeine. There's nothing wrong with it. Not only does it help increase more fat loss throughout the day by making you more prone to NEAT because you're more energized, you're more active, so you're gonna actually burn more calories through NEAT because you're gonna have more energy, but also it's an appetite suppressant, so you're not gonna be as hungry throughout the day if you're having caffeine. Now, of course, don't go overboard with caffeine and do some bad things to your heart and dehydrate yourself, but caffeine in moderation is an effective fat loss supplement and also helps the performance, obviously, in the gym. Number 2 would be green tea or green tea extract. Green tea does contain caffeine in it as well, but additionally it also has other catechins inside them, which are also molecules that help with fat loss. So combining green tea and coffee throughout the day, it's a great way to stay lean, but make sure you do stay hydrated because the caffeine contained in both of these things will dehydrate you a bit over time. So make sure you're getting your water in as well. So the next thing I would recommend is Yohimbine or alpha Yohimbine, otherwise known as rauloxime. Now, there's not a lot of places you can get alpha Yohimbine as far as I know. The place I usually get it from is Gorilla Mind. I'm not sponsored by them, but their products are fantastic and I hope to be sponsored by them someday. But Gorilla Mind's alpha Yohimbine product, otherwise known as rauloxime, is very effective. Yohimbine and alpha Yohimbine, essentially what they do is they target the opposite fat receptor that most traditional fat burners target. So most fat burners, they target the beta receptors. They're called beta agonists. Things like Clen, etc., fat burners that bodybuilders use for contests, EC stacks, stuff like that, they target beta receptors in fat. Well, stubborn fat stores tend to be more dense in alpha receptors. That's where Yohimbine/alpha Yohimbine come into play. Alpha Yohimbine and Yohimbine tend to target the alpha receptors in fat preferentially over the beta receptors. So they're actually specifically good for targeting stubborn fat loss deposits. Now, is this gonna burn fat if you're eating in a surplus? No. You have to stick to the diet, you have to stick to your cardio, you have to keep in a deficit. But if those things are on track and you add this in, it will most certainly help you burn stubborn fat. Now, the difference between the two supplements, Yohimbine and alpha Yohimbine, is most people get uncomfortable side effects from Yohimbine. They get jitters, they get sweaty, they feel a little stemmed out and cracked out, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling. On the other hand, alpha Yohimbine tends to not give people those same side effects. However, alpha Yohimbine also is a bit stronger, so you don't have to take as much. Now, interestingly enough, and this is probably extremely rare, in my specific case, I actually get more side effects from alpha Yohimbine than I do from Yohimbine HCl, the typical tried and true one that everybody knows. I can take a ton of Yohimbine HCl and not feel a thing. I just take 2 pills or sometimes even 1 pill of Yohimbine, alpha Yohimbine, and I am feeling sweaty, I'm feeling like jittery and uncomfortable and anxious as hell. But that's just me. I definitely urge you to try them both. And if you can tolerate either one, I definitely would recommend alpha Yohimbine because also it's stronger, it's more potent at the same job. So take that tip for sure. Also, another thing I want to mention, Yohimbine/alpha Yohimbine works best when you are in a fasted state. So it's something you would optimally take before fasted cardio or a fasted training session, but I would recommend it before fasted cardio specifically would be the best use. So the next thing we have on the list is L-carnitine. L-carnitine is a fantastic supplement that a lot of people overlook, and that's because they don't take enough of of it. You have to take several grams of L-carnitine, and most products are dosed in the milligrams. The reason that they are underdosed is because orally, not very bioavailable. So either you inject it or you take a lot of grams of it orally. Now, it is important to note that if you take it too often orally, you could be getting a byproduct called TMAO, which is carcinogenic, but this can be offset by taking in garlic every day. If you are going to be taking L-carnitine orally every day, which would be a pretty great idea if you're natural especially, make sure you're taking garlic supplements with it. The other option would be to be getting it from a pharmacy and taking it injectably. L-carnitine, what it does is not only does it help in the fat mobilization process, it also increases androgen receptor density and upregulation. So therefore, however much testosterone is circulating in your body, it makes it more effective. More sites are there for it to bind, so it makes it more effective and you get more results. Now this works for both naturals or enhanced athletes. Both can get a great benefit from L-carnitine, both from a fat loss and muscle growth sense. It's a great recomping supplement as long as you're taking enough of it. Now, the last thing I want to go over in this video is carbs, okay? At the end of the day, calories in, calories out is the most important factor that determines whether you gain or lose fat. However, we can manipulate this to be more effective or less effective depending on what we do with our carbs and proteins for that matter. I went over protein in the previous video about the thermic effect of food and muscle building to increase metabolism, but now we're going to go over carbs specifically. So carbs are a fuel source. It is the only macronutrient in the body that is actually non-essential. Your body switches off carb burning mode and goes straight into ketosis. Now, I personally don't like keto. I like carbs, but I'm smart and I strategize how I use my carbs and which types of carbs I take in. So there are high GI simple carbs and there are low GI complex carbs. So complex carbs are carbs that take a longer time to digest and don't promote as strong of an insulinogenic response. So therefore, they don't promote as much fat gain and water retention as simple sugars, simple carbs would. Simple carbs are things like white rice, white bread, crackers, things like chips, things like that, versus complex carbs are things like whole grain, multi-grain bread, quinoa, stuff like that, grains, etc. So I tend to prefer complex carbs throughout the day. I can get away with doing that and not gaining as much fat because again, less insulin response. At the same time, I will use simple sugar, simple carbs directly pre and post workout in moderate and small amounts to help give me that pre-workout boost and post-workout recovery at a faster pace. So there is a time and a place for all these types of things as long as you're strategic about it. Now, if I'm cutting, I lower my carbs because guess what? Carbs are just a fuel source. You don't need them. So if I'm cutting, I'm not going to take in more fuel than I need just to perform. Carbs are used only to fuel my performance in the gym. Other than that, I keep them very low. If I'm bulking though, I want to be in a surplus of energy. So I'm going to be having carbs a little bit higher. I'm going to also have the other macronutrients higher, but I'm specifically going to make sure my carbs are a bit higher so that my muscles are full of glycogen throughout the whole day. Versus when I'm cutting, I just want glycogen to be there for training performance and optimization so I can go hard in the gym and burn more calories while I'm there. So with that said, the last thing I want to cover is carb cycling. Carb cycling is a very complex subject and could take up a whole entire video on its own. But what I will say is carb cycling is a very effective way to manage your carb intake to prepare for a photo shoot or a show or whatever you're trying to do. There's multiple ways to do carb cycling, but carb cycling essentially entails certain days where you have no carbs, certain days where you have low carbs, and certain days where you have high carbs. And you basically spread them out throughout the week in a strategic fashion in order to optimize workouts, but also optimize fat loss. Similar to what I do with my carbs on a daily basis, but in a more broader macro sense throughout the week. So maybe you'll have a low or no carb day on your arm day where you don't need them as much, but you'll have your high carb day on your leg day where you do need it the most, or your back day, you know? And then that way you can really get a lot of fat loss, but at the same time, you don't have as much carbs throughout the whole week. Your total carbs for the week is actually very low. And on those days where you're low carb, you are absolutely melting the fat. And then those days where you're high carb, that's kind of like a sort of a cheat day, but you're also gonna have a monstrous workout, which is gonna burn more calories at the same time. So that way you can keep from going insane from low carbs all the time. You still have good workouts, but you also still get that crazy fat loss on the day where you're low or no carb. So there are many different approaches and strategies to structure carb cycling, but essentially that's what it is. And you can look up for yourself different ways and what works for you best. So, and I'll touch on intermittent fasting a little bit. Intermittent fasting is also a decent way to help lose some fat. Personally, I don't do it myself, but I have family members who implement it. And essentially intermittent fasting in and of itself is not gonna make you lose fat. It's not, because you could still overeat when you're in your eating window. Intermittent fasting though, it's good for health reasons. Autophagy it promotes a lot of other good things, anti-aging, insulin sensitivity, etc. However, intermittent fasting is not gonna just make you lose weight just by following it. You have to still follow your calorie allotment. A lot of people end up losing fat with intermittent fasting without tracking calories simply because by restricting their eating window to a small window, they just end up eating less food throughout the day and their hunger seems to be less. So it does work for some people. Same with ketosis. It's a very similar concept. By eliminating an entire food group, which happens to be the most addicting and least satiating food group, they end up just eating less calories throughout the day as a byproduct. So that's basically what I have to say about part 2 of how to diet to stay lean year round. I hope this was helpful. Max K, peace out.